All right, folks, buckle up. I've got a story to tell. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another legacy video. And Jonathan has asked me to build around Zada Hedron Grinder. So this is a 3/3 Goblin ally. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. And this is a unique ability. It's essentially said, like, go nuts, see what you can do. And my mind immediately went in a really weird direction. So my brain initially went to a Crowan Crusader. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you create a 1/1 red soldier creature token with haste. With the idea being, you cast some spells in the early game, get a bunch of creatures, drop Zada, and then play some sort of pump spell that goes and turns your army into a lethal army. And I kind of had this cute idea of doing something like using Battle Hymn to capitalize on the large number of creature tokens that I was making and turning it into some sort of pseudo storm deck list. But as I goldfished it, I was just incredibly unhappy with what I had put together. And there's a few primary problems with Zada. So number one, the CMC4 cost makes you want to put it in a deck with something like Ancient Tomb or Rituals, but neither actually works well with Zada, because Ancient Tomb does not cast your early creatures. It normally enables stuff like Chalice of the Void, but you don't want that in your creature deck. That also needs to be playing 1-drop spells. And this is also a CMC4 card by Legacy standards, where you could just be playing an initiative creature. And we can't just ramp into it with a Sticker Goblin, because the Sticker Goblin doesn't contribute to this instant or sorcery theme. It's not something that has any sort of redundancy with the instant and sorcery sub-theme, and that left me in a really difficult spot. The cats are being incredibly cute in the background. Whoop. My girlfriend went out of town, so I'm trying to leave the office open while I record so they can hang out. So, rare cat appearance. Tabby is Percy, and the black cat is Poe. Anyway, in my madness and going through Scryfall searches and Commander EDH recommendations, I came across Feather the Redeemed. This is a 3/4 body for 3 mana, which is going to do things like wall, your Delvers, your Dragon Raids, Channelers. It's not an embarrassing body on its own. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile it instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves, and if you do, you return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So my next idea was use like 4 of these supplemented by 2 Zadas to build a deck list. And as I started to goldfish, it was clear that like Zada was just the worst card in the deck list. So I'm doing something I normally wouldn't do, and I'm just kind of accepting that I don't think Zada is going to work at a competitive level, and I'm going to try to stay true to the spirit of the video. All the things that were cool that I could come up with to do with Zada were just too clunky and too slow by either 1 or 2 mana. A 4 mana card that has no immediate impact on the game when it hits play is just going to be rough. And if your immediate impact is something like mutagenic growth and that's the best you've got, like, I don't really think that's cutting it. And I don't think I want to play a tap out 4 mana card into a tap out 5 mana card that is also going to require a decent number of other creatures to be in play in order to work. So I think Zada is purely for the casual EDH table, unfortunately. And as I started leaning into building around Feather, I realized that I needed a plan B for Feather. I needed something else that would lean into the instant and sorcery synergies. Because, if you have 4 feathers in your deck that is 60 cards, you're not going to have one in every opening 7 or even in every game. And that's where I started romanticizing about the old days where Dreadhorde Arcanist was legal. JK, I did not. This card was not healthy for Legacy. But there is a format where this and Ragavan are still legal. So to honor the original idea of building around making the instants and sorceries count by casting spells that target a single creature in combat, I have decided to shift this to a modern video. And Jonathan, I hope this still ends up being entertaining to you. Shoot me a message if this is not to your liking, and we'll work something out. But I think I have come up with something pretty reasonable that captures the spirit of what you wanted, if not the exact cards. So I am going to try to use these heroic, air quotes heroic, because this one doesn't actually have the keyword on it, creatures that do something when I target them with a spell. So both 10th District Legionnaire and Favored Hoplite can go and scale themselves up as they get targeted with spells. And my goal is to play a decent number of spells that just kind of have a small effect while cantripping, or otherwise can push a large amount of damage, and then we will recycle them with Feather and Dreadhorde Arcanist and do some disgusting things. One of the neat ones that I found, and this may be me going too far into the jank tank, was Reckless Rage, which deals 4 damage to target creature I don't control and 2 damage to target creature I do control. However, Feather, 10th District Legionnaire, Favored Hoplite, and Dreadhorde Arcanist all live through that 2 damage. And so I think this is a real card. Just like get just about anything out of the way, push some damage, recycle it later. I've squeezed a decent amount of value out of the mana base with a few utility lands, a few of the channel lands in here, while kind of keeping the spells reasonable. I think I have ended up with a high power brew, and we'll see if this can hang. I don't really know how to build a modern sideboard, so I have just focused in on a handful of effects that I think are very powerful in the right matchups when drawn, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. So this was a result of me kind of bashing my head at the computer for a couple hours, much longer than I care to admit, and hopefully this ends up being at least a little bit entertaining, and if nothing else, I can say that I have played Gird for Battle in a constructed format. So I'll have that going for me. And if you need some copies of these cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your next order. Let's battle. All right, we're gaming. I need to play the white land here, which means I am taking damage. And assuming my creature doesn't get answered, this is going to do a very surprising amount of damage relatively quickly. Scalding Tarn. And this is a shock land format, so I don't have to do the full 20. Like, opponent has done some damage themselves. Oh, that Unholy Heat sucks for me. JK, I have Ragavan. Everything is fine. Are we dashing that little lad? Sure. Let's dash. I don't know the format well enough to know, like, the pros and cons of dashing or not. Flooded Strand. I'll go ahead and pass the turn. I could cycle Defiant Strike. I don't think I have to do that. Like, I can potentially get more value out of that card a little bit later. So this costs 3 if I control Ragavan. So I think I am going to attempt to regular cast this. And then I'm just going to channel while I control the Ragavan. Yeah, that's fine. Like, I can still use these pump spells on tokens and be perfectly fine with that. And if I can start to get something like a Feather involved a little bit later, cool. Send them. Like, despite my mediocre start, my opponent is at 11. So we've got that going for us. A Prismatic Ending, sure. Ooh. So, I mean, I can just Reckless Charge, Defiant Strike. Let's see how this goes. This is a good removal test moment, because my opponent can remove this token to stop me from drawing a card if they would like. Seems like they're thinking about it. A Spell Pierce. I can let this get countered and then just deal 7 to my opponent. I think I'm into that. Now these are sorceries, just FYI. So we Reckless Charge. Reckless Charge. Opponent's at 4. And I can flash these back at any time. The life from my Sunbaked Canyons here. Definitely noticeable. Okay, that takes my opponent off of Urza's Saga activation for the time being. We'll see if there's another land drop that stops that. It does. So I can attack in and trade with an Urza's Saga token. I don't get trample with this. I think I'm going to go ahead and just cycle one of these to draw a card. Well, I'm into that, I guess. Just immediately turn this into a 2/2 so that I can survive combat with an Urza's Saga token. And this puts my opponent in Lightning Bolt range if they don't chump. This is fine. I have a Reckless Rage for the potential next Urza's Saga token. Ooh, not an Urza's Saga token. A Pyrite Spellbomb. What is this? Okay, yeah, I remember this one. Pyrite Spellbomb is annoying. Sure. Land and Bobble. Got it. Sure. Now I lose this creature. Unfortunately, can't target players. But hopefully that's fine. I'm looking for a body. That is not a body. Let's cycle this and draw a card. Lightning Bolt's good. If I fire this off now, it is spell pierceable. It is not, however, counterspellable. I think I'm going to try to put my opponent to 1. I succeed. Let's put the fear in him. Teferi Time Raveler. That makes some of my tricks worse. I imagine my opponent is just cashing that in immediately for a card. Mox Amber? Really? Underworld Breach? Okay. So this is a value breach. Just like redeploy Mishra's Bobble a couple times. Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting. The Brain Freeze isn't legal in this format, I don't think. I'm going to check that. Yeah, Brain Freeze is not legal. It was reprinted in Vintage Masters and is otherwise ancient. Dryneth Magistrate is reasonable, I guess, for Breach. Magus is not crazy. Sanctifier in Vec can take some power away from Breach while also being immune to red removal. I think I'm not super excited about Gird for battle here. I think it's unlikely that I'm going to target 2 creatures with this a lot of times. So that becomes these 2. My Reckless Rages are maybe not at their best. I don't exactly know what sort of creatures I have to get out of the way. I think I'm going to just grab a Drannith here and either play a Magus to round things out or a Gird for battle. I think I'm just going to go a little threat heavier here. If nothing else, that match serves as proof of concept for what I am doing, and I am happy about that. Sure. And there's the land. Sure. So that's 17 already. I get to play Ragavan on turn 1, maybe dash Ragavan on turn 2. I am pretty happy with this opening hand, honestly. We'll see how much damage my opponent ends up doing to themselves. Quick note, Sanctifier in Vec is pro-red. Protection from red is symmetrical, so I can't target that with some things like Reckless Charge, just like something to be aware of. Alright, there's an Unholy Heat, and an Urza's Saga. Sure. I think I'm just going to drop the Sanctifier in Vec this turn. I can't think of a way that Breach just, like, very quickly kills me. So I think I get to ignore that. Got an upkeep stop here. Unsure why. So I think I'm going to go ahead and shock and attempt the dashed Ragavan. I can go ahead and attack with both creatures, and if my opponent attempts to make the Urza's Saga token to block, I just Lightning Bolt. Yep. Bolt it. Deal my opponent 4, make a treasure. I get to preordain, assuming I want to preordain. I think I do. Arcanist is reasonable. Expedite is not particularly strong right now. I'm going to go ahead and top that. Ragavan bounces back. Opponent can make a construct. It's only a 1/1. Comes a 2/2 with the construct token here. Wait, is this symmetrical? Ah, fuck, this is symmetrical. A lightning bolt isn't in my graveyard. Right. That makes this much worse than I thought it was. Okay. Let's shock again. I think I am going to go ahead and dash one of these anyway. Awkward that this is a sorcery in this specific case. I think it's fine. And we see which one of these things my opponent values removing more. It is the Ragavan. Sure. Opponent goes to 11. I think I'm going to go ahead and drop the Traneth Magistrate now. It helps out with this sort of stuff. This is less good until this dies. I can just attack with it the next turn and then play out 2 of these and probably end up... I wonder if my opponent just realized what they did. They did not. Yep. Okay, sure. There's a shock and a prismatic ending. Okay, so they're just going to play that out on 1, which did not have any actual impact on the game on that current board, but here we are. I might be just playing this into the EE anyway. Send it. Opponent's at 6. Do I just want to play 2 of these? Maybe I just play 2 of these instead. Very unsure about this, because like if my opponent holds up 2 mana to get rid of this, that's a huge win for me. They're not making a construct token. And if they don't hold up the mana for this, like I just super scale it up and have a super favorable combat. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this anyway. Kind of make life a little tougher for my opponent. Okay, yeah, they're floating the colorless mana, so like playing the favored Hoplite probably just saved me having a 2/2 or 3/3 blocker in play, which like I'm good with that. The Spellbomb can kill my Sanctifier in Vec. Emery, sure. Traneth Magistrate doing a little more work than I imagined it might. Conceptually, that is. I imagine this is the Spellbomb on the Sanctifier. Yep. Now the remaining 2 mana goes to cracking the EE. This is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this first. And still kind of do what I need to do. Ooh. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and draw a card here. Ooh. This is good. Let's do this land drop. I'll like fetch out a basic plains. Wait, this tramples? 3, 6, 7, 8. I forgot this tramples. It's usually not relevant in Legacy. Yeah. Combat. Attack. Send it. Target Reckless Charge. Cast the Reckless Charge. That's 8. My opponent is dead. Hello. Trample on Dreadhorde being relevant. Okay. I feel good about the couple hours that I spent brewing. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com, just the best place to keep your online deck lists, and the reason I say that is it just has so much functionality. So for example, let's take a look at some random legacy deck here. You can click on your various 2-drop slots and you can see what % chance you have of casting various things on curve, and you can get a breakdown of your mana symbols and all of that stuff, and there's a lot more here than just this. Consider checking it out. All right, my hand has no lands. Easy mulligan. Second hand is quite good. I just decide what I'm throwing back. Probably the third land. I probably just keep threat and spell density here. Let's get rid of the one. Well, maybe I don't get rid of the one that causes me damage, because I conceptually might want to cast both of these in the same turn cycle. My opponent says, huge fan. What are you doing in the modern queues? It's complicated. Yeah, I think I want to keep this so that I can red. Ragavan. Let's do it. It still baffles me that, like, some things like Renin 6, Dreadhorde, and no, my monkey. Ragavan, Dreadhorde, Renin 6 are just like all allowed to exist in this format, and it's just like okay somehow, given how warping all of those cards were on Legacy. Shit, this has haste too. This card is sweet. Get him. So, unfortunately, my opponent's probably going to be playing a mono black control deck list. Like, we got the full on like weird face emoji in chat. Profane tutor. Spicy. Let's see. So I can't cast this without 2 targets. This card's stuck in my hand, meaning that I can go ahead and cycle this to draw a card immediately and still reckless charge if it's my best thing to do this turn. Ooh, maybe I should have scryed first. I guess if I play a if I draw a Ragavan, I want to do that. Okay, I talked myself out of it. Reckless charge. Feather? Fuck yeah, I'll play Feather. Top. Combat. 6. This is very fun. I am enjoying this a lot. Right now, I feel like a much younger Phil who has like brewed a deck for an FNM and is just showing up and it is working. Just good joy. I think I just attack for 3 and jam the Feather. I'd like to play this the same turn that I can cast a spell on it. Alright, send it. It does require all the pips to be colored. Can't save the life with Urborg here. Yeah, I'll use this ability. Is this for a basic? Yes. So I have 3 basics in my deck. I wonder if I have to be worried about like a damnation here. That card modern legal? Never take my word for what is and isn't modern legal. I will play around things that aren't even in this format. Okay, it is legal. I've still got a creature. All is not lost. It's actually a little unfortunate that I drew that. So yeah. Red, white. 3 to flashback. So that's real good next turn. Not doing me any favors right now, though. Just the make a mana when it ETBs. Yeah, okay. This is the thing that just activates Cabal Coffers by itself. Got it. Agonjo not doing me any favors here. I think I am in strict go for it territory. If nothing else, this lets me scry. Sure. My opponent didn't use all their possible mana for that, which is a little weird. Send that to the bottom. That can, I guess, be a land. Sometimes I might need to cycle through some stuff. So this is the point of the game where things are kind of bad for me. The opponent has like 10 mana. There's a Karn. I'm not immediately locked out with Mycosynth Lattice in this format. But this can get a card like of the caliber of the One Ring. Hey, it's the One Ring. And the life loss is unlikely to kill my opponent because they have cards like March of Wretched Sorrow. I guess that's a boon. Now that doesn't fish more cards out of their deck. But I don't think I get to limp over the finish line from 10. Orcish Bowmasters. Yeah, I don't think I talked about Orcish Bowmasters in the intro. That was another card that like just fully turned me off of attempting this in Legacy, because a lot of the creatures I was originally looking at were X ones. Sheoldred does not eat it to Reckless Rage, which I think is just coming out of my deck. So with the One Ring just giving my opponent a bunch of life and my inability to answer this Sheoldred, I think I am comfortable moving to the next game and not showing my opponent new cards. Pro Black, good. Magus of the Moon, reasonable to stop Cabal Coffers nonsense. Path to Exile, not crazy. I want Reckless Rages out. My Expedites and Defiant Strikes become worse against Bowmasters if those remain in the deck. I think I keep Ragavan. I think Ragavan is powerful enough that I keep that despite some of the awkwardness there. If I don't want to play Path when I'm on the play, this is what I submit. And I just keep a few cards that are bad versus Bowmasters. I think I'm fine with this. One land. I'll go land favored Hoplite and then Reckless charge it. I won't be great against Fatal Push. I'll beat a bunch of other stuff. I have really good cards in hand. I think I'm going to risk this one. I think I'm just in a solid position if I draw a land or if I draw Fatal Push. And since or my opponent does not have Fatal Push is what I meant to say. So let's see how this goes. Don't Fatal Push me, Doctor. Okay, well, I'd say that's annoying, but not the end of the world. I have lost the Sanctifier. I've kept the 1-drops. I think I'm just going to Reckless Charge right now. I'll bash in for 5. It's a very relevant amount of damage. And I can continue making that amount of damage just increasingly larger. I don't care about something like Bowmasters. Heroic is only when I target, right? It doesn't say, but I presume the answer is yes. This is a sorcery, which is a little awkward, because I would love to like leave up both of these to better play around something like a Bowmasters. I don't think I get to do that here. I'm just going to charge in and leave up Lightning Bolt, probably at my opponent's face. Okay. You may ping me. Sure. I'll let that chump block happen. I'll pass the turn. I have Lightning Bolt available, which I can just send here. I could weirdly send it at my own favorite Hoplite to grow it, but I don't really know that that makes sense. But this, assuming this works, this is worth 4 points of damage or more instead of 3. I don't think I cast this one here. I think I just send in and then play Dreadhorde. That's another one, which is annoying. It's just a lot of chump blockers. I think, honestly, it's fine as long as something like Damnation doesn't get involved. Like, if I get 2-for-1 at this stage, it's really bad. And I do consider it a 2-for-1. Like, the Orcish Bowmasters has already gained 4 life and dealt me a point of damage. That is unfortunately a Damnation, which is what I did not want to see. Did not draw a land. So now I am in an awkward holding pattern until I draw another land. And my opponent will have time to play like the One Ring and friends. Yeah, no, that's bad. Yeah, that's the One Ring. I don't know that I come back from this here. This is reasonable. This gives me my white source through Blood Moon. Not that I really expect Magus to stick around here. This is just literally a creature with a body. And my opponent gets to Karn Tutor again before the Karn leaves play. Tithing Blade. Absolutely fucking brutal. How dare you? Magus of the Moon had so much to live for. Alright. I'm going to sack this and draw a card, and I think if I miss a creature, I'm just out of this game with my opponent at 13 life. I don't think this really counts. I can see when I'm beat. GG's. So I built this deck with a 20-20-20 set of numbers in mind. I have 20 creatures, 20 lands, 20 spells. And sometimes I'm going to get awkward hands that look like this, where I don't actually have the starting spells to make the heroic things pop off. But I think aggressive creature into aggressive creature into aggressive creature is like fine, even if I don't top deck any spells. Alright, I imagine this is some removal spell. No, little buddy. Okay. I'm going to shock. And I will just go ahead and do the haste creature here. And send in. This is a much stronger creature in a vacuum, but I don't have the things to target it just yet. And I don't want to like play this and then just commit to bolt bolt to face next turn. I think it's stronger to just kind of play it cool for a little while. All right, now what? This turn I might drop one of these. I think I'm just going to do this and hold up a bolt, which I will play end of my opponent's turn. I don't really care if it gets countered. Like, I would still be trading for a card. Yeah, that's fine. And this was exactly the card that I had in mind when I did not play the bolt. Because now I get 2 chances at removing a Ragavan. Which seems like a pretty big deal. It's dead. Sure. So drop this. Red, white, see if we hit a counter spell. We do. Send it. I will go ahead and send this at face. Opponent goes to 12 when all's said and done. I drop a second one of these, and now what I would love to see is like a Gird for battle or one of my 6 cantripping instants and sorceries. I think I have 8 really strong hits, and the +3/+0 trample spell is also pretty darn good here. Ooh, it's Murktide. I'm not particularly good at answering Murktide in game 1 here. So what I instead have to hope to do is force the Murktide on the defensive out of fear of me killing them from nowhere. Which is valid. Like, the Murktide kills me in 2 shots. But I could potentially deal 11 in 1 turn, right? Yeah, I can deal exactly 11 with the right top deck. Not counting, like, redraw ones. Favored Hoplite can pop off pretty hard. Alright, my opponent's going to put me to the test. I would too. Feather flies. That buys me a turn. I get to do 3, put my opponent to 8, and then hope that they can't answer Feather. I have to just play into every counterspell and removal spell known to mankind. I just have no ability to not do that. Well, good news is it's in play. Alright, opponent's going to continue to attack. And we'll see if I can kill my opponent. Land will not do it. I am unfortunately dead. Fall a little bit short. There were a lot of lands on top of the deck, though. Say Livy. Despite the awkwardness, I think I'm still playing this. I think I want the paths. Maybe my Reckless Rage idea was less of a good idea than I actually thought it was. I probably cut a creature from here rather than a spell. Like, I do need to keep a decent number of spells so that I actually do my thing. Do I cut like 1 lightning bolt? They're really good against Ragavan, though. Maybe 1 Gird for battle? That's fine. That is too much mana. Absolutely not. Second hand has literal 0 mana. Rough. I'm on 5. And it's going to be an awkward 5. Probably throw back a land. I think I'm keeping bodies. Ooh, lucky. My opponent is also on 5, so we are both fighting on very limited resources here. And I guess I'm technically supposed to wait till my opponent's end step to do that because of things like Ragavan, and now they know it's safer to do, but you know, whatever. It's too much feather. Do not want. I am in a really medium position here. Oh, cool. No removal spell from my opponent. No creature from my opponent. However, my own resources are pretty medium here. It's scary for my opponent to cast something like an Unholy Heat on this, because I can just like cast a spell and save it. Oh yeah, that's fine. Like, my feathers are a better card long term. Not that I can cast them yet, but that's fine. The 1/3 is awkward versus this exactly right now, but doesn't line up well versus this stuff a little bit later. Yeah, sure. So cast. This allows me to still push 2 damage this turn. This would be a sweet Gird for battle spot. Not this time. Sure. Take your lands. I need a spell to kill this Ledger Shredder before it starts getting swole. But I did board out my, what is it, Reckless Charge, Reckless Rage, because they don't line up well versus Murktide Regent. So these attacks into Ledger Shredder are not free anymore. I think I'm just not taking them this turn. I don't think the bluff is worth it when I just have something that looks this good for the not too distant future. And we can fight over Feather a couple of different times. This returns at my end step. Yeah. So if nothing else, the Feather can still attack until my opponent double spells in a turn, and then things get a little weird. Okay. Yeah, speaking of things that are for some reason allowed to still exist in Modern. Unholy Heat. Sure, you do have the 4 card types. I can just redeploy another Feather, and hopefully things are okay. So I can do this and create a 5-power attacker and crash in. I think I am more interested in playing a Feather here. And is this optional? This is not optional, which is relevant for flashback purposes. So we'll keep that in mind. It's a Murktide. How sick would Path to Exile be as a draw? Path the Murktide, Feather, End Step, Path the Ledger Shredder. Or maybe in the other order so Ledger Shredder doesn't trigger. So let's start scaling up some dudes. This is some weird templating in terms of the wording of this ability. It triggers when the spell is cast, not when it's put into a graveyard, since it's attached to a replacement effect. Alright, so I get a Scry, Defiant Strike. I think I'm looking specifically for Path to Exile, despite the fact that this can do some silly things. Let's go ahead and put that on the bottom. I cast another spell. This becomes 6/7 power. I trigger Ledger Shredder. I think I'm okay with that. Like, I'm about to get this spell back anyway. You may connive. Alright, they junk a Spell Pierce, a new Reckless Charge. I don't think I'm interested. I think I very specifically want Path. This is 7 power. I don't really have a good attack here. I will bounce that spell, though, and get to use it again. EI. Sure, it's a bobble. Ledger Shredder gets to do the selection thing. Stern Scolding. Is that the counter spell? Yeah. Counter target creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less. Got it. That hits most of my early game stuff. I could basically die right now to a second Murktide Regent. How's opponent feeling? Are you the beatdown? Like, it's very possible to die from this life total. Okay, it is an attack in. Just going to go ahead and take that damage. I could block and replay a Feather, but I don't think I like that. Take your card. So I can fish for Path a little bit here. So I can go Reckless Charge, target the big guy. My opponent is very aggressively counterspelling here. That is not the Path to Exile I am looking for. I'm going to go ahead and bottom that. Oh, because I dodged Feather's thing, this now does go to my graveyard. This 5 is blocked. Opponent takes 5. So I can recast this here rather than fish for Path, intend on blocking with Feather, and get a valid attack and a Scry. I'll die to a removal spell on Feather. Now I have 2 different replacement effects for what is trying to happen to this reckless charge? Bottom that. I think the flashback like overrides it. So if I attack, this always has to be blocked, or my opponent. Well, if I attacked with everything, this would always have to be blocked, but then I die on the backswing since I took that extra 1. I think that means I am only attacking with this. My opponent could just take this. Yeah, that... Tapping that land put me in a weird spot. Okay, they are going to just absorb the damage. Let's see if they have a removal spell. Oh, shit, I do get to return it, even though I flashed it back. Hell yeah. Ledger Shredder's fine. Preordain's fine. That's an Unholy Heat, and that is unfortunately exactly lethal because I tapped this land. GG's. Alright. I've kept my opening hand here. We've got 2 broken cards, 2 lands to do them. We keep running into these blue-red decks. A Lightning Bolt. I think I'm into just answering that immediately. And I think I can do it off Basic Mountain. I just don't think I want my opponent to surveil. I'm not very good at beating Murktide Regent. Like, that is a very hard card for me to beat in game 1. So I think I just don't give my opponent any ability to select with that card. The fact that they have a second is a bit unfortunate for me. But we will get to see Reckless Rage potentially do the Reckless Rage thing. Oh my gosh, that's so many cards to graveyard. Oh no, they've topped something. Sure. This is a 3/3 immediately. Not great for me. I have so many cards with the word Reckless in their name. I go ahead and slip this into play. Hope it lives a turn. If it does, I have like Lightning Bolt and Reckless Rage to do really good things with it. And we'll see if my opponent finds like a Lightning Bolt or Unholy Heat to deal with my creature. That is a Lightning Bolt, unfortunately. Sure. Oh, so many creatures. That's rough. Absolutely. I think I'm trying to dash a Ragavan and get lucky. I'm going to play that. If nothing else, this serves as a removal spell for my opponent's Ragavan. Like, I assume they don't let this get through. And I leave this one in play. Like, I take their Ragavan here and hope to get another creature. This is the downside of Reckless Rage kind of being a cute card. I think after playing with this for a couple of rounds, like, it just shouldn't be in the deck. It conceptually seemed good in deck building, but I think in practice, given how removal dense Modern is, it just isn't working. Whereas I think by legacy heuristics, there's a bit less removal. And I think I failed at keeping the Murktide Regent out of play, so I think that just beats me. My opponent's still at 16. I don't think I can limp over the finish line here, realistically. What if I can, though? What if I can, though? So, play Dreadhorde. I can Reckless Charge to give haste, Reckless Rage 4 damage, Reckless Rage 4 damage, and take the Murktide off the table. Thanks, I hate it. Haste. Alternatively, I just Reckless Charge again from hand, Reckless Charge again, and deal my opponent most of their life total if they don't block. Then save this for this creature later. Or Reckless Charge here. Go to combat. Attack. Target Lightning Bolt. Cast Lightning Bolt. Target here. Take out that creature. See if my opponent wants to trade their Murktide away. If not, deal them a bunch of damage and potentially just have lethal next turn if they don't remove my creature. That might result in me winning a higher percentage of games. I don't know that it always results in me winning because my opponent can like find a Lightning Bolt or Unholy Heat and I get blown out. But in the worlds where that doesn't happen, I just double Reckless Charge again. Damn. Alright. So I can play Legionnaire, do something targeted. That doesn't work. I'm a mana short. I'm flashing these back right now. Let's cycle this draw card, try to find something that gets me out. I'm a little short on mana. If I take out the Murktide Regent the previous turn, I'm not presenting lethal immediately. I may be in better shape. I don't know. I don't have reps in this format to know things for sure. So I think the Reckless Rages are still going. Those get replaced by Paths for Murktide. I'm going to play one of these. And I go down one random card, call that good. Yeah, this is fine. So I probably keep this. I'm not sure which one of these creatures I lead on. This is the obviously better creature. But next turn I can play this, expedite it, put it outside of range of Unholy Heat. And that seems like a big deal. So I think I am just going to lead on the Ragavan and let the Ragavan go, despite it objectively being the much better card. All right, there's the shock. Play this one? I think play this one. Stern Scolding, sure. I mean, that means my Ragavan is in play and connecting and producing a treasure. A DRC? Maybe I should have considered that card for this deck. I don't know that I do enough with different creature types for that to be super reasonable. Or sorry, different card types for that to be super reasonable, rather. Lightning Bolt the Ragavan. Sure. I can put instant in my graveyard pretty easily. I'm going to do Favored Hoplite. Going to expedite it. Get my +1/+1 counter. That feels slow. I'm going to say no to that. Sanctifier in Vec. You want to go ahead and shock here. Take that little bit of extra damage. I'm going to continue to go in on this heroic thing. Scale up this creature. Surveil a land into my graveyard. Draw a new Ragavan. That's reasonable. My opponent can trade DRC for DRC if they want. My opponent's at 9. They could play a small Murktide Regent. This is a scary spot for them, right? Yeah. So this creature just runs them over at this point. That was really good threat density on my end. Quite happy with that. Am I wrong on Reckless Rage? Should I be playing more of that card here? Maybe I should. I can get rid of the Expedite. Gird is kind of awkward. There's just so much red removal on the other side. I can play a couple of these Reckless Rages. The Gird not being a combat trick is kind of rough. I wonder if there's a better version of that card. Oh yeah, my hand has multiple Ragavans. That's a keep. Ragavan from my opponent. They get the first crack at Ragavan, which is not the best for me, because they can play theirs. They have theirs in play. They can Lightning Bolt mine or whatever, and then get their crack in. My average curve is incredibly low, so they're very likely to get something they can play off of it. Nope, just a plains that time. No land. That's good for me. I think I just play 2 creatures here rather than dash Ragavan. I think I just want 2 defensive bodies. My opponent needs this Ragavan to connect to continue producing mana. Okay, yeah, sure. This is fine. They attack with their Ragavan. I trade with this as long as they don't have a third 1-mana removal spell. I'm good. Okay, sure. They hit a Sanctifier in Vec that they don't have the mana to cast. And I'll just kind of do the same thing as last turn, where I will double play out defensive creatures. And at some point, they just run out of 1-mana spells. And I'm good. Stern Scolding. They didn't counter the Ragavan, which is a little weird. 4th 1-mana red removal spell? So I am going to block, rationalizing that I have more creatures in my deck than my opponent does. I'm not going to give them that extra mana. You can take your redraw. I might spend a turn or 2 missing, but my opponent is not deploying lands. I'm going to assume that this ends up favoring me. And once I draw any creature, I can pop off pretty hard. Sure. Another Ragavan. Alright, deck. Please don't just, don't crap yourself here. Sure. I'll take this damage. Path is a blank. But now my opponent is past their initial awkwardness, and they could just, like, draw Murktide, and my life is terrible? Yeah, okay. So this is a turn late. I think I'm doing this awkwardly. I think I take one redraw. Yes. No, actually. I'm going to lightning bolt this around a spell pierce. And then I will go ahead and just take a redraw here. Okay, good. That's what I wanted to find. I'm going to take 8 damage in the meantime, but that is 100% the sort of card that I was looking to draw. The eye is so very good. Sure. I'll take the 8. I can't play Sanctifier in Vec as bait. I have to just play the Path to Exile. And I'm dead if this does not resolve, so I'm just going to fire it off now. Doesn't matter if I wait till my opponent's upkeep. Like, if they have a removal, a counter spell, I'm dead to it. Yeah. Murktide Regent is too tough to beat. GG's. Alright, I've kept my opening hand here. It's slightly awkward in that I don't have spells to target my own stuff. It'll pop off really hard if I draw any spell. So I think it is worth keeping. Are we just gonna do this like blue-red thing for a 4th round? I don't know that my heart can take it. This might end up being a creature. 2 creatures rather, I guess. I think I'm gonna shock. I think I just want that flexibility. I don't know, maybe I already have the flexibility. Alright. Play spell. And attempt to attack for 3. 17. Sure. Okay. It's at least something different. I'll take that. Is it the Rug Triome? That's the Rug Triome. Got it. So what, are we going to be playing against some sort of Rhinos deck? Yeah. Okay. Got it. Who's scaling up? You're probably scaling up? I don't know. Maybe the Scry matters. Although another turn or so from now, the preventing damage is probably super relevant. Let's do this here. Get this stacked up. You're still untapped, right? Yeah. We'll go bam. Bam. 5 damage this turn. Things get interesting after that. My opponent could just like put 10 mana on board, or 10 power on board for 3 mana here. And my life gets pretty awkward. Dreadhorde has trample, which is nice, but Shardless Agent into Rhinos is pretty strong. Alright, Dismembers, Fire Ices, Force of Negations. Alright. Got it. So this thing tramples. I can do something like Reckless Charge, then this trades with a Rhino. Flashback Reckless Charge here. No, Flashback Reckless Charge here. Then Defiant Strike here. That conceptually makes sense to me. So, Reckless Charge. Then an insane Force of Negation, by the way, if my opponent happens to have that. God damn it. That's so frustrating. Cycle? Cycle this. Just hope to draw into another reasonable spell. Like another pump spell. Negative. I really need to go wide of what my opponent is doing here. I can attack with this Dreadhorde, Defiant Strike this, and scale it up and push some damage. Might need to do that to stay competitive. My opponent chumps with Shardless though, and then attacks me for a bunch. Yeah, whatever. I think it's happening. But that was just super unfortunate for me. So scale up, draw a card. Haste is interesting. Oh yeah, that's fine. Like, I am very happy that you threw away a Rhino. Now maybe my opponent just like makes another Rhino and it doesn't matter. I am hoping to end this game before this other Crashing Footfalls comes down. Our opponent is on the defensive. So let's try to press this advantage here. Don't have another basic mountain, so I do want to shock. I'm going to go ahead and play a Dreadhorde. Maybe I did this turn wrong. Unsure. I'm going to try doing it like this, but like sometimes this gets countered by another Force of Negation or a Dismember, and then I don't actually attack with it this turn. Maybe I just ignore this and just start this here. But I guess if the Dismember goes here, it's just like way worse, right? Flame of Honor. Sure. All right. They don't get my card out of that. I'm just passing the turn awkwardly. This Crashing Footfalls coming off would be a big deal. I can maybe still burn through it. That's not doing what I needed to do, though. Let's be done at instant speed. Yes. So I'll just do this on my opponent's end step. So I have... Oh, fuck. My opponent makes 4 rhinos and then makes 4 more rhinos. Or, sorry, makes 2 rhinos and then makes 2 more rhinos. I think at this point it is no longer realistic for me to win. That's brutal. Ouch. Like, I'll take 1 more draw step in case I'm wrong. I will just eat all 12 to the face. Try to limp over for 10. A violent outburst for Exacxies. Sure. What would I have drawn? A relative blank. Unfortunate. So I can play Drannith Magistrate to keep my opponent from casting the stuff off Cascade, and that's pretty good. Path and Sanctifier Invec both have text. I'm not really excited about Magus of the Moon versus a Lorien Revealed deck. Reckless Rage can kill a Rhino. I don't know if that's good. Gird is probably awkward. I guess paths are fine. Like, I path a Rhino, I Dreadhorde attack, I path a Rhino. This is probably better than Reckless Rage. Then I keep the rest of my aggro stuff. This is a 1-lander. It's a 1-lander Ragavan. I'm going to keep it and hope that it works out. Like, if I get to my second land drop or Ragavan connects and I get to play Drannith, I feel very good about the game. So I think I'm in on it. But we've had a decent number of opening hands where I kind of... Okay, that's just a suspend. That's totally fine. So let's start doing some Ragavan nonsense. Opponent goes down to 18. I don't have to Drannith this turn, but it's possible something happens to the Ragavan next turn. So I think I just do this now and put it into play and give my opponent 2 very good removal targets. Make them choose. This one doesn't get killed by Fire Ice, which I guess is nice. Opponent's got to play, though. 15? What has a weird cost in my... Oh, okay, no, it is just fire. They're just doing it immediately. Okay, I mean, that's why I played out the Drannith, right? Now I will just go ahead and throw a haste creature into play. Attack my opponent for 3. Kind of hope that the Drannith continues to stick around. I'm not, like, dead if it disappears, but it's definitely not the best if it's gone, is all I'm saying. Let's fetch... Basic seems fine here. I think I'm into this and continuing to stay aggressive. I think I send the Drannith in. See what happens here. Oh, I'll just lightning bolt that. That's fine. Get out of my way. Connect for 5. Now I can potentially even just beat Drannith Magistrate leaving play and my opponent producing some rhinos. Alright, hot damn. As always, the game on the draw will be a little bit harder. I don't think I'm making any changes, though. I don't have a way to stop rhinos here, but I only have a couple of Drannith Magistrates that do that. I think I am just going to keep a hand that is aggressive and hope that it ends up going well. Another Reckless Charge. Not what I want here. but it is what I'm getting. The Legionnaire could get very big if the board stayed clear, but I think it's unlikely that the board continues to stay clear. Dead, sure. Just another good... Oh, wow, Mutavault. Sure. Is Mutavault actually, like, good? My opponent's deck is a 3-color deck, and that's a colorless land. That feels very greedy to me. But I'm a relative outsider to this format, so take that with a grain of salt. So, I think start here. Just like take that redraw. Maybe I fetch first. Bottom that. Well, I'm going to play that this turn. Probably post-combat. I think I just crash in and run into a rhino and then stop more rhinos from coming and then try to clean up the other rhinos somehow. I think that's just where I'm at. Like, sometimes this is just a flash creature instead of Violent Outburst. This time it is Violent Outburst, though. And if I play the Drannith Magistrate, my opponent just fires this off in response. Sure. Let's see. If I Lightning Bolt, I kill both rhinos. I give my opponent another chance to produce rhinos, though. I think that just has to happen, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'm using 2 different Lightning Bolts to clean up the remaining rhino. I don't know, maybe I just trade 1 for 1. But with, like, all these removal spells, maybe I just have to give them a turn and hope they don't have another. Oh wait, I'm a fucking idiot. I was thinking about triggering this, and I don't actually trigger this. Alright, I've committed to something stupid. If I get blown out by a Force of Negation. I do. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and concede. I punted that one. So, I don't know, I just kind of got in my own head there and did something dumb. I'm supposed to trade this for this, play Drannith Magistrate, then double clear a Rhino with Lightning Bolt next turn and try to go from there. Draws are maybe below average. I don't know that I end up winning this one anyway. So I think there are some good lessons in this whole thing. So number one, we started out building around Zada, and Feather often ended up being too slow, and Zada comes down a turn slower while also having worse baseline stats in combat. So I think that makes me comfortable in kind of trying to shift to Feather, but even that wasn't enough. In terms of adjusting the deck, I feel like I played a pretty reasonable pile for a first draft. Reckless Rage maybe needs to be some other removal spell of some kind. It's like awkward. I really like this effect because it does trigger these heroic creatures and it's good with everything except Ragavan, but this not answering Murktide Regent the way something like Path to Exile would is kind of a big deal. Gird for Battle should be something else. This was something that conceptually was really cute, like targeting a favored Hoplite and a 10th district at the same time with it, for example, was really cool. Or like playing it on Dreadhorde, flashing it back. Now I have a giant, really hard to remove Dreadhorde is conceptually good, but it just never happened. So I would be looking to change those 6 cards. 20 lands felt about right. 20 creatures felt about right. Like, that general balance feels fine. You could maybe dip down to 18 lands if you wanted, and it wouldn't be crazy. You would be better at triggering spells or the heroic creatures, but worse at making advantage of Feather in the late game. Maybe you can slot some prowess creatures into this deck. But at that point, why not just play red, white, burn? It would probably be a more efficient version of what I'm doing here in terms of getting a kill. I would say overall, I am still happy with how this performed. Like, for a bit of a wild brew that I slapped together having minimal format knowledge after kind of scrambling from Legacy, I think this was a great first draft. And I hope you all have taken some things away from this. Like, sometimes you sit down to brew around something, and after doing your initial legwork, you just like realize it's not going to work. And rather than, you know, repeatedly trying to force it, sometimes it is just better to go and pivot. and this was a reasonable pivot. Maybe I can't play Sanctifier Invec in this deck while being a Dreadhorde deck. This was still a reasonable sideboard card. Maybe we just turn this into something else. Like maybe I just play a fourth Dranith, a fourth Path, or something like that, and call that good. Or maybe we get a Prismatic Ending or two in here. I think there's options. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed. If you end up wanting to buy any of these cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your next order. And folks, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya.